Hey guys, after I did my Flamewood build that had over something around 80 million damage, I thought that it's gonna be difficult to top that build. I usually don't play builds that have that much damage because I play kind of on a lower budget, and that one was like around 10 divines. This build is below 20 divines, and I think it has more damage. I have no way of kind of figuring out how much damage it actually has. You're gonna see a lot of clips. I'm maybe even gonna add some like comments to those clips, because some clips were like Uber Shaper, some were like normal Maven, normal Cirrus, Uber Eater. This is Manaforged Indigon. It's a bit complicated, and it's also using the, as I call it, zero curse abuse, where you lower your maximum curse limit to 0 and then apply multiple curses per hit to recover 1% of life and mana per curse applied per hit. Some people said that, oh, you sacrifice curses, surely it's intended mechanic, it's not broken. In my opinion, it's broken. Yes, you sacrifice curses, but the damage ramp is still amazing. This build is very clunky. I did not like playing this build. Mapping is just... I did not enjoy mapping with this build for the most part, because the damage uptime is very bad. You kind of rely on Arcane Cloak to ramp up the damage and to give you flat damage. Once you lose Arcane Cloak, which happens also if you get hit too much. So if you get hit, you lose your damage and you lose your kind of protectiveness. So this is kind of squishy build. It has no mitigation of an Arcane Cloak and kind of movement speed. But it also has like very high life and mana sustain, as long as I'm not running out of mana. I did try to tank Uber Shaper's beam, and it is possible to tank it, but it's also very dangerous, because if you run out of mana once you ramp up Indigon, well, you cannot use skills again and then you die because you cannot hit again. I would not recommend this build, but if you don't mind clunkier playstyles and just care about bossing damage, I think this has a lot of potential, and this build is still far from min-max. I don't even have catalysts on my ring because life and mana catalysts are kind of expensive, and I thought, like, why spend extra like 120 KS for that? So, whew, now I need to explain how this works. Okay, so I'm gonna try to explain this, but again, I don't know exact damage numbers. I can show you PUB, but okay, let's see. Lightning Arrow, 10.9 thousand average hit damage at 50,000 mana spent recently. And yes, I'm pretty sure I can spend 50,000 mana recently. Some people say that you can spend even 100,000 mana recently. Well, I don't know. I don't know how much I can enter here. Okay, so here's how it works. The Manaforged skill triggers when used another main skill, and is based on the mana cost. If you look at here, Lightning Arrow right now says this skill will trigger once a total of 137 mana has been spent on bow, and my main skill costs 48 mana right now. So I try to increase the mana cost of the main skill and then lower the mana cost of the Lightning Arrow in this case. I think with this, every fed attack I proc Lightning Arrow. 1, 2, 3, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's some kind of rounding up, rounding down, I'm not sure. So there's a bit of inconsistency. The Manaforged triggers a skill, which then hits the enemy. If that hits an enemy, it also uses Mirage Archer. And then Mirage Archer is, it's not you, it's immune to reflect. It does not also proc anything on hit, and Mirage Archer does not leash to you. So you cannot benefit from this crazy recovery with Mirage Archer. However, Mirage Archer kind of, it's not technically snapshotting, but it can continuously keep shooting ramped up damage from the Indigon. And also, the more mana you spend, the more mana the skills cost, the more damage you get from Manaforged support. So the Manaforged support says 1% more damage with hits and ailments per 1 flat mana cost. So once the skill begins starts costing like 10,000 mana, you essentially get 10,000% more damage. So Mirage Archer does kind of snapshot that, because it can keep, because it gets created with that kind of damage. It's really difficult to explain how this works. But essentially all of my damage is not from the main skill, but from the Mirage Archer plus Manaforged. My main skill is there to only hit as fast as possible, to get the recovery as quickly as possible, and also increase the mana cost to proc the other skill as often as possible as well. So the attack speed does matter, and for clearing I was using Lightning Arrow, but for bossing actually you can also use Lightning Arrow. I was told that it can shotgun because Mirage Archer kind of shoots into the ground, and all the hits kind of explode somehow. I can pretty much like 1 or 2 shot tier 16 map bosses, and Guardians also die in like 2 or 3 hits. But with Storm Rain, I feel like it can ramp up more. However, Storm Rain is very conditional. If the boss moves, then you kind of lose a lot of damage. So the best case scenario for Storm Rain was like Uber Eater at the beginning of the phase when it doesn't move a lot. Uber Shaper as well, Maven as well. Although I have not tried Uber Maven, I only tried Uber Eater and Uber Shaper. And then Sirius is also pretty bad. Well, if it doesn't move like in the first phase, if you can ramp up quickly enough, then it's like very good damage and very quick. Otherwise, Lightning Arrow is probably better. Now for the main skill, I chose Galvanic Arrow because that's my favorite skill. When you add Barrage Support, you pretty much double the amount of hits. This shoots 9 arrows, but because each arrow produces the cone with the Barrage Support, you also double the amount of hits. It's actually hitting 18 times per attack. You could use some other skill like Rain of Arrows, kind of spreads out too much, and it's not as good against only one enemy because it doesn't overlap as well. Galvanic Arrow is like really great because it's like directional. You just shoots in front, but you can also use Blast Rain like artillery. It shoots into the air, and then after a small delay it starts dropping on the ground and hitting multiple times as well. But I do not like that because not only that you have to target in the direction, but you also have to target at the spot where the enemy is, which is much harder than just shooting in the direction. Leveling was actually like really bad. For leveling, if someone wants to level this, do not level with bow attacks. Because mana stacking bow attacks suck until like level 57 when you get Mind of the Council, but even then it kind of sucks until you get to 69 when you can put on Indigon. So I would say level up with the spell Archmage, because stacking mana will give you damage from the Archmage. And you can get a quick leveling setup, early leveling setup by getting a ring that allows you to socket a course inside it. This ring, Mark of Submission. You socket any of the cores inside it, you get Replica Doldress Damning to lower your maximum course limit to 0, and you can start recovering 1% of your life and mana every hit once you pick up the Course Mastery. Now I'm gonna provide a shopping list for this build. It's not very big, but you can also find that shopping list in the notes section of the PUB. A combined mandatory item cost is around 10 divines. Like Kill Rain, a 16 Kill Rain, 1.5 Ds. If you want +1 arrows, I bought it for 2 divines, but there are plenty for 3 divines. Replica Doldress Damning for now is still not expensive. Foible, not expensive. Indigon, somehow, I bought it for like 100 chaos, and there are plenty for 100 chaos, maybe not for long. Now, Hands of the High Templar gloves with 3 courses is around 1 to 2 divines depending on the market. But there are other options. You can use the Arsenal's gloves, which already has inbuilt temp chain on a hit if they are double corrupted for extra 2 courses or just 1 corruption, and then get synthesized ring implicit. But those can be expensive for with the course on hit. A very expensive option would be just to get the triple course on a hit synthesized ring, but that's probably like, I don't know, 500 divines if it even exists. Chevron's Revelation also very cheap. Lavianga Spirit, you do need Lavianga Spirit because you like very quickly run out of mana, and then you use Lavianga Spirit and then you can cast your skills for free, and then it automatically disables the Lavianga Spirit once it reaches full. By the way, this is Scion, Raider, Hierophant. You can actually mix different options. You can also pick up Deadeye, get Onslaught on a hit somewhere else, get like Frenzy Generation somewhere else. You can pick up Hierophant for more damage and less mana. I did get Juggernaut with the Forbidden Jewels. By the way, did I mention in a previous video, I did mention that this is not my creation, a copied build from Grimslade. I did adjust to my own liking, like Galvanic Arrow and a couple other pieces. I don't have a lot of tattoos. They can be expensive, but you can actually add a lot of more HP by getting live tattoos here and there. The all quality gems are also not too expensive. The most expensive one is the Divergent Manaforged and Anomalous Mana Leech. You don't actually need these. None of these are like mandatory. Well, Divergent Manaforged I think is kind of mandatory. It allows you to proc it more often. Might of the Meek and Healthy Minds are also cheap. When you place Might of the Meek in here and Healthy Mind in here, you get so much mana around. Mana here, then these life nodes get converted into mana and they give 15% mana per node. These mana nodes get multiplied by Might of the Meek. These mana nodes get multiplied by Might of the Meek. These resistance nodes get multiplied by Might of the Meek, so it's very nice spot. You also do need the skill effect duration for the Mirage Archer, for the Arcane Cloak, for the Battle Mage Cry, but by the way, Indigon provides spell damage, right? In order to get attack damage from that, you need Crown of Ice, but you cannot have two heads. But you can use Battle Mage Cry to give yourself like a Crown of Ice effect, and your spell damage then affects your attack damage. But I did pick up minimum 10 power because sometimes you're gonna war cry if you put it on left click while you're not at the boss, and you're gonna get some damage, but most of the damage is not really coming from Indigon. It's coming from Indigon's mana cost increase, which has no limit. So even if you war cry when there is not enough enemies, you're still gonna be getting damage from 10 minimum power. So that is kind of important. Now to get this much mana, Chevron's Revelation gives 250 flat mana. The region doesn't matter because you can actually remove the ring if you need to region, but when you hit enemies, you're just gonna recover mana very quickly. In fact, I am recovering more than 50% of my life and mana per attack, and I am attacking over 3 times per second. I'd say it's foible as well with Catalyst, not Cloak of Defiance. Cloak of Defiance, like, it doesn't really give anything other than flat mana. So ideally you would want rare body armor, something like this. Bell could also be improved. The boots I try to get a bit more CDR because Arcane Cloak has downtime. The cooldown only begins when the buff ends. So once it ends, you want this to cool down as quickly as possible because you pretty much lose all of the damage. As you can see, I am carrying Diamond Flask. This is to trigger Elemental Overload a bit more reliably, but you can also very easily refund Elemental Overload and pick up a Precise Technique. Then you would not need this in here for the crit. I'm using Large Thread of Hope. You can pick up like very good nodes like this one, extra arrow, another extra arrow, movement speed here, attack speed as well, and crit or chain if you want, but you don't want sorry, not chain, but you don't want pierce because then ensnaring arrow will not root enemies and it will not give you damage. So you would definitely have more accuracy than your health and would benefit from this, and the damage would be more consistent. However, I had Watcher's Eye, generates flash charges when I crit while affected by precision, which is kind of nice to have during like bigger boss fights, but I'm not sure how useful it is. I would rather have Precise Technique and just get a different Watcher's Eye. I prefer more consistent damage. Another thing that I recently learned, or maybe I've forgotten about it, for Mind Over Matter build specifically, you can, like if you need clarity and like precision or vitality, you can reserve it on your life, and then you can actually use Eternal Blessing linked to another aura to get a free aura. Because Eternal Blessing says your non-blessing skills which reserve mana are disabled. So you can, it only specifies mana. So it seems that if you reserve life, you can still use Eternal Blessing to get a free aura. And I use that for haste because it really needs to be fast build, otherwise it just doesn't feel great. Now to get a lot of mana, you can use these cheap tattoos, however you need 30 dexterity nodes. So it kind of forces you to spread out across the passive skill tree quite a lot. You can anoint actually, you may even want to use items that allows you to anoint like boots, save a lot of points on travel, because you can anoint like this point, I believe it's called Alacrity, yeah, Alacrity, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, and then just add tattoos on that. And you want 30 flat mana tattoos. I have 4 of those. Those 4 tattoos stack the same way as the Grand Spectrum jewels. So they are multiplicative with each other. So, well, sort of. So essentially with 4 tattoos like that, I'm getting 480 flat mana. Not 120. It's 30 times 4 times 4. You are getting a lot of flat mana from those tattoos. I also have another Manaforged setup. This is just to automate Frenzy Charge generation and Ensnaring Arrow. This build kind of lacks sockets. I would like to add like increase the V for Sigil of Power, and also don't really have enough chance to shock. That's why actually going a bit of crit is beneficial, because otherwise I don't really have chance to shock, and relying on Divergent Sigil of Power to provide shock is also not that great because you're not always standing inside it. I only noticed 29% shock against Uber Shaper. That was with Lightning Arrow. Lightning Arrow probably hits, yeah, Lightning Arrow hits harder per hit than Storm Rain. But I think Storm Rain can ramp up to a lot higher numbers. It's just a lot more difficult to play because the target has to be pretty much not moving. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it about this build. I haven't figured out what to do for the next build. I kind of want to do another mana stacking build, but not using Indigon. Maybe just the Archmage and Kitava's Fest. I did get a helmet enchantment for Kitava's Fest. Anef spawns corpses with +5 levels. That's a very good enchantment on Kitava's Fest. I believe there was only one on the market. There's not on the markets right now. So I may actually do a build with the Kitava's Fest next, although I haven't really decided what to do next. If you got some interesting build ideas, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.